morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Welcome, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this February 26th, 2020. Your host, James J. Maloff here. In part two, we are going to have the ODC president, Pam Ross, on with us. Right now, we are joined by Doug Machon from Wood County Board Chairman, along with our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Good morning to Joe and everybody over there. We appreciate you being in with us. Doug, how are you today?
Pretty good. Nice to be here, James.
Nice to have you.
Joel, nice to see you again. Joel, always the best-dressed man in the room.
Yeah, Joel's something. He is always the best-dressed man in the room. That's a really good point.
Even at county board, too.
I love when people match their socks and their tie, and Joe is so good at that. Style, man. Just style. Really, we have to up our game a little bit.
He wants to be a fashion designer at heart.
Maybe. We're going to have Joe. I'm just going to have to interview Joe one of these times. I'm going to turn the mic on him and force him to answer my questions.
I want to be here for that.
We appreciate you being here with us, Doug. We enjoy every chance we get to talk with you, and I wanted to open the floor to you wherever you wanted to start things.
Sure. A lot of things going on. I thought that when I announced I wasn't going to run at the 3 months going out, leading to the April reorganizational meeting would probably be somewhat mundane, maybe uneventful, but there's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. Actually, it's good because if I want to be remembered in any particular way, I want to be remembered as the guy that never took his foot off the gas. That's kind of the way I was operated on a lot of things. I thought I could identify issues that we needed to move on quickly. I think we were pretty successful on doing that in a number of areas, but it's kind of refreshing to know that I'm not going to. I said I would never skate out, and that's true. We're going to run to the finish line, and there's some neat things going on that we're still working on. We're actively pursuing a developers agreement with Savion for the solar project in Saratoga. Those talks are ongoing. I'm happy to say that I initiated that conversation. That's going places. I'm stepping back now as I'm going out. Hopefully that agreement will be done before I leave, but there's no guarantee that it will be. But we're close. We're very close.
When it comes to something like that, it was such a passion project for you and you cared so much about it, does that make it shows, one, how determined and what it means to you to step away. You wouldn't be stepping away if it wasn't a good reason, clearly. And obvious, and also it also shows that you feel comfortable that this is this project is going to work out.
Well, yeah, I certainly hope and believe. I believe that the Savion project in Saratoga is going to be a done deal. That's going to happen. Hopefully, it leads to better things, but hopefully, it changes the philosophy in the county and at least identifies a new direction for the county as far as the county getting into the renewable energies, in particular solar. I had the good fortune to do a presentation for the Towns Association a month ago on solar. They were interested in hearing about solar. And there was a palpable interest in the room on solar. There was legitimate questions asked. People were interested in the benefits of solar. And I've said it before. You can talk about the global warming thing. I'm not going to get into that argument. Fiscally, it makes so much sense.
There you go.
And when we talk about now, we're talking about one of the things that we're working on right now, not working on actively, but hopefully our renewables and sustainables group will take up the torch on this, is the settlement money that's come to the state through Volkswagen for the emissions violations that they did on the Volkswagens that were produced and sold in the state. That's a pretty good pot of money, and the lieutenant governor has created a grant fund there for electric vehicles. And so hopefully we can have we've talked about it in the background at the county about the advantage of electric vehicles because they're number one, the initial capital outlay for purchasing one is coming down by the day, and they're cheaper to maintain. You don't burn gas, and so there's no reason we shouldn't be taking a critical look at those types of things. And if we have a plan in place, at least a rudimentary plan for some kind of a program like that within the county, we should be eligible to get some money for charging stations from the state.
Agreed.
And I think that's a great opportunity for us. And I've said it so many times, and when we go back to not taking your foot off the gas, on something like this, and there's other things as well, but you have to move. My big dynamic has always been to have a vision, and I'm a long-range vision guy, but you have to have a vision, and then you have to find the people that are going to work with you on that vision, no matter what it is. And so when you do that, and you put your team together to investigate those things, good things happen. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about developing a team and finding a vision that people can buy into.
Yeah. Nobody gets it done on their own.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You need a team. You need a team, and you need a team that's on the same page as you, as well as people who think outside the box a little, or at least think a little differently than you, so you have different perspective. And I've always admired not just yourself, but the other people that champion that same kind of thought. You don't want to be on the wrong side of history with something like this. And no. I feel like it's one of those things, and I'm asking, I do have a question here because I'm kind of be presenting to you here, but it's one of those things where as much as I hear people pushing against solar power or alternative energies, I feel like what gets lost in the shuffle is, one, this isn't a fad. This isn't going anywhere. No. We just saw, over the January until now, where we're seeing a lot of the trucks industry is getting into electric vehicles. Yep. And you're going to see this continue. You're going to see boats doing it. You're going to see other things doing
Absolutely.
it. That isn't going away. But also is one of the challenges that you've had to run into with people, the idea that understanding what it is, alternative energy means that we don't necessarily we're not going to throw out gasoline and we're just going to use solar power. It's an alternative to gasoline. It's an alternative to coal. Have you run into that? Because it seems like one of those things that people
at times, yeah. We're first of all, I've always been clear. We're never going to get rid of fossil-based fuels.
Right.
There's a need for that.
Yeah.
Many needs. I mean, if nothing else, you can go to lubrication. But I mean, there's many needs for fossil fuel.
Certainly.
So it's not about eradicating fossil fuels.
No.
It's certainly, if you're coming from a global warming perspective and you want to get into that argument, you can make a case that, you're going to reduce the amount of fossil fuels. And I'm not really going there. I'm not going to do that. But the fact is, the political push is much less. The main political push against it in the county was because it was me. It was me. It was a personal thing. It wasn't necessarily the idea. It's who the idea comes from, which says a lot about our politics. And you and I were talking about before we went on the air about things like that. When I see a guy like Luther Olson stepping away from politics in Madison, that gives me pause.
Yeah.
That guy, he's a moderate guy. Mm-hmm. And, there's no room for those kind of guys anymore. And I think that's a terrible statement about politics in general in this country, in this state, in this county, if you want to do it. The polarization, prudent and pragmatic thought is out the window and flown away. And that bothers me. And when you can't have discussions without basing it on personalities or calling people names, that's a terrible place to be in for not only us as humanity and as a society, but as for our taxpayers and constituents. Because they're kind of the silent majority out of there. And you know what happens when you're silent? You go to the bottom of the list. Yeah. And what people need to do is, number one, they need to hold elected officials accountable for what they do. Yeah. And if they don't, if they sit back and bark about it at home and don't do anything, we're lost.
Well, and people need to also, if you don't agree with the insult politics, people need to stop supporting people who do that. On all sides.
Absolutely.
It's one of those things where it's not just a one-party thing. All parties do it.
And both sides do
it. Both sides do it. Both sides are just as guilty as the other and everything else. So it isn't one of those kind. It's just one of those things where we as people, we have to remember that we have the control. We are the voters. Yeah. And you don't have to vote these people in. You don't have to.
And they know what to say. I mean, politicians know what to say. There's fiscal conservatives out there that'll tell you they're fiscal conservatives, and I can tell you right now they'll waste your tax dollars faster than anybody.
Yeah,
depends on who they want to give it to.
I had I've gotten a lot of a real rough emails over the last couple months, but one of the ones I got a good one the other day from somebody after I had Senator Teston on, and we were talking about this subject, and each one of the people that I have had on, including yourself and Mayor Verwink and Congressman Kind, all these people have said the same thing, that they're tired of that insult politics. They're tired of, we can't we just debate and it doesn't have to come down to an insult contest.
Yeah.
One of the things that this listener brought up was the idea of people signing a moral, contract and all this stuff. I don't think that that's really going to do anything. I would like to see more actions than words. As far as people like acting on this, like you're in a debate with somebody, they insult you, and you don't insult them back. You just stick to your point, because if your point's good enough, I feel like that should stand on its own.
I've always thought that.
One of the things that I think that is interesting to me is in the last 10 years, one of the biggest topics for our children has been bullying. Mm-hmm. And here as adults, our politicians, the people that are supposed to be in charge, the people that we vote into office, are some of the biggest bullies you see.
A bit counterintuitive, perhaps.
Absolutely. So what are we teaching kids here? What are we? Hey, bullying's wrong, and then I'm going to go off, and and it's not just politicians, because it's maybe even on a bigger spectrum. It's us as citizens, where we see somebody who we doesn't agree with us, and we immediately try to take them down a peg or insult them or anything. Yeah. I mean, we can all take a punch. It's not like any of us, like Doug, you've been made fun of. I've been bullied. We all can take a punch here. It's not about that. It's about the idea of, if we're going to actually stick to our word here and say bullying is bad, or try to teach our kids the politeness and a respect and everything, we got to be able to do it ourselves.
I think that it's been made. It's been accepted, and that's the sad thing, that it's become an accepted tactic. It used to be Machiavellian politics. You know what? Machiavellian politics today's politics makes Machiavellian standard or typical Machiavellian politics look like Mother Goose.
Absolutely.
I mean, holy cow, we've gone way beyond Machiavellian politics. Your points of Machiavellian politics made sense. Had some pragmatism to them in many ways.
Whether you agree with it or not, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. But the fact is, we've gone way beyond it. This has digressed to the Hatfields and McCoys.
And so don't you feel it's that much more important for the people, the voters, to vote people in that don't do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the trouble is, you don't find out till they're in office. But you can get a pretty good idea where people are coming from. You can't totally, but the fact is, you can find out really fast. You watch debates. Joe, you've been on the floor. You know what it's like at the county board, and I don't know if we're any better or worse than any other county. And I think that people sometimes think that it doesn't happen, that county politics or city politics or village politics or township politics, whatever you want to take it to, is too provincial to have those types of dynamics. Sorry.
Yeah.
What happens in Washington, D.C. happens at your town hall meeting, and maybe to a much higher degree. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, we can sit here and lament it all day long. It's not going to get done until good people stop walking away from politics. I mean, again, I go back to a guy like Luther Olson. Holy cow! There's no room for him, a guy like that. Well, and that's why probably, I don't know exactly why he's going. I don't know what he said, but I'm assuming it. He was because he was a guy that went after pragmatic approaches to things and could see both sides of most issues.
Without saying names, certainly, I would say 3 out of the 4, 2 out of the 4 at least, of the people that I've talked to politically are tired. They're tired.
They're not going to miss it.
It's gotten to the point where politics has always been a grind and one of those games where you gotta like you said, you have to keep your foot on the gas the whole time, otherwise you're going to get run over. But now it's become a thing where you just run over, no matter what. Whether you're a good guy or not, whether you got good sides or it doesn't matter. If you got 100% of the vote, you're getting run over, and it's becoming,
somebody's going to run you over.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more one of those things where I think your line there was one of the greater things that you've said here with us, is that it's not going to change until good people stop leaving politics, till we get good people to want to stay in politics.
Yeah,
that is one of those things that, again, as voters, I think we have to pay attention to. We have to.
I'm certainly not going to miss it. I can tell you that. It's been 8 years. I mean, there's been people on the board, and talking particularly about the Wood County board, there's been people on a lot longer. But if you do it, and I've been told that I take too much of this stuff personally and take it to heart. Well, you know what? That's what I was hired to do, and that's what I was elected to do.
Politics
that's my
is
job.
Personal.
And if I'm not going to do what I honestly believe is best for my constituents, then what am I doing here? What am I doing? If I'm in there to go and get free cookies at meetings and hit the dinner circuit, you know what? What am I doing? What am I doing?
If I do a performance and a critic bashes me, I don't take it personal because it's my performance. They're not bashing me as a person. They're bashing my performance. In politics, this is you. There is no act. There is no, this is who you are. So when they're I see what you're saying there. When it comes to that, it's so much more personal. It's so much more, this isn't one of those kind of things like that.
Maybe it's, I come from a different background. I always did. My main thing was I'm a blue collar guy. I'm proud of that fact. I worked in a paper mill my whole life. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and I didn't have. I worked hard for everything I got. Mm-hmm. So it gave me a lot of perspective. And my job, I believed that my job when I went to the county board was to represent working class people. And I think I've done that in many of the ways. And I think that's what's terribly frustrating for me is to see hardworking people. I see people in my district that are couples raising kids on $30,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to advocate for some of the spending that we do with tax dollars and try to have to explain that to them. Yeah. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to have to tell them something that I can't explain because I don't agree with it. And I think that you see a lot of that. And of course, everyone's not always going to agree on everything. And everybody has a right to an opinion, and every vote is sacred on the floor. But the fact is, I think we have to do a much better job of why we're spending money, who we're giving it to, what we expect to get out of it. There could be trouble on the deep blue sea behind us if we don't get our act together.
Well said. I was speaking to Will County Board Chairman Doug Machon. We also have Wisconsin Rapids Community Media in with us as well. We're going to have one more show with Doug here. So on that show, we'll get into a little bit more of kind of just recapping the career and looking at things. But I did want to dive into if there was anything else from the board or to meetings that you wanted to touch on before we let you go today. Yeah,
a big topic that's come up, and I think it's one of those things when we started out with solar, I was going to go to the place where, some things you got to jump on. You have to identify that they fit with your vision. Two things I'm really excited about. Our READY grant, I think, is going to really produce some good things for Wood County. I think we're down the road with that. We've got very, very good partners there, strong partners, committed partners. I think that's going to be good. I think one of the things that's recently come up for me and been identified, and if I was going to be sticking around, I would certainly try to steer us in that direction as much as I could. And that's as we look at our Powers Bluff and we look at our Wood County bike plan. That's a big deal right now. It's a big deal in a lot of ways because if you look at Powers Bluff and what we have on the table there to be developed, to make it a biking venue where you could perhaps have competitions out there and stuff. There's a lot of ancillary things that fit into that plan that could be economic development, characterized as economic development. When you look at we put money off for Powers Bluff, and this is where I say, sometimes I'm not against spending money. Mm-hmm. Sometimes spending money, you have to spend money to make a difference, and it's going to pay off. Yeah. There's not always a defined ROI on everything you do, but there can be a partial defined ROI, but there can also be ancillary economic upticks that you probably can't identify in dollars and cents. Mm-hmm. Traffic in businesses, things like that, hotel stays. But the fact is, it's a pretty good price tag on what we want to do. We can piecemeal it a little bit and probably lessen the blow. But I think we need to really get going on that thing at Powers Bluff because I know the people in Marshfield are really interested in it. They're interested in probably revamping the winter sports part of it into like a more snowboard type area because they said a lot of people say it's better suited for that. And that's people that ride bikes do snowboarding. Yeah. Those two things fit together very nicely. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the counties that surround us, and this is where I've always said, you can get on the train now, you can get on the train later, right. Or you can miss the train. I always say, let's hijack the damn train and drive it. Yeah. And that's always been my philosophy. Yeah. Powers Bluff, the biking idea that Chad Schooley's got there, our parks director, is a great one. He's spot on with it. He needs money to get it done. I hope that the future board sees the importance of that. You look at Portage County; they've now developed Standing Rock as a biking facility. Marathon County, which was the leader in biking facilities at 9 Mile Forest, has added 2 additional venues. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you? I go to the UP. I have a place in the UP. We go to Copper Harbor. I used to fish Copper Harbor in the fall. Never had to worry about getting a motel room until about 5 years ago. I went up there, and guess what? Went up the same date I always went up there. Never had a problem. Walked in. You got a room? Yeah. How many you want? Wow. last 5 years ago, I went up there, I couldn't get a room. The town was overrun with bikes because they started having biking events. Had to go to Calumet, almost 40 miles away to stay. That's the kind of impact it can have. Now, how long are we going to wait to do something like that? Are we going to wait till Portage County, Marathon County, perhaps Adam County all have bike facilities, and then we're going to come in last minute and have a bike facility? That's going to be irrelevant.
You don't want to be last to the dance on this one.
Exactly. And I think there's enough interest there that we need to develop some people, maybe a committee, maybe a group that needs to push that thing forward as fast as possible.
I don't think that we have a bike share program if we didn't have so many people riding bikes. It seems like a pretty easy one to kind of like pass through. I understand that it involves money and nobody likes, spending money necessarily. But like you said, we're all adults. We realize that sometimes you have to spend money to make money, or that sometimes you spend money on something and maybe you take a little bit of a hit, but the PR that you get or whatever adds up, kind of fills that gray area. It's a workable thing.
Makes it a better county. Makes it a better county. And, being the long-term vision guy and the real vision guy, as you do Powers Bluff, well, then, we have a bike plan that we're going to be working on with the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, which we just joined, which is great because they're going to not only do our bike plan for the county, but I've talked to Dennis Lawrence, the director, and we're going to probably try and incorporate the Powers Bluff plan at that. And there may be some avenues for grant funding that they can identify. So, you get Powers Bluff developed. You get it established as a place where people can go to do competitive bike maybe. Mm-hmm. Then you add that short trail and a bike trail maybe from Marshfield, 10 miles. Yeah. Maybe you get that done. So then you have an opportunity for people to maybe stay in Marshfield motels. Maybe Dad's going to race in the bike race at Powers Bluff tomorrow. So Mom and the kids get on their bikes and they ride out on the trail and they watch Dad race. And there's a facility out there. They maybe have a banquet. Maybe you have a picnic. Okay, you got that going. Then you look at Pittsville, the next short jog over to Powers Bluff. Yeah. Then you do Wisconsin Rapids out there, which is a little bit longer stretch, and this isn't going to happen overnight. But in the end, you have a county that becomes bike-centric. And then you have something. But the fact is, you can have it too late.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, we have a couple of examples of that show that biking is popular in this area. I mentioned the bike share program. That's not a thing that we put money into and we have around if people aren't using bikes. Yeah. But also, the BMX thing that's been going on over by Lincoln there. I give those guys so much credit. The people that have done that and worked so hard on that to build that up what it is to where now we have like state, events there and everything.
If I was going to give money to anyone, I'll tell you what, they'd be high on my priority list because they've done a wonderful job.
One of the things that hasn't gotten talked about enough with that group and what they've done over there is, how often do we talk about giving kids things to do, giving positive things to do that don't have to do with a tablet or a phone?
There you go.
I can't tell you how many people I see on Facebook of their kids getting into BMXing, getting into racing and everything. Yep. And it's because it's right there in town. Yep. It's very similar to when I was a kid and soccer was really big. You had soccer fields all over the place.
Yep.
There are these things if you give kids an opportunity. So that's another reason why this is it seems like such a win-win idea.
Yeah, my neighbor kid is involved in BMX, and I can tell you right now, it's a very family-oriented thing. They pack up. Here's a good example. They pack up their. He's pretty high-ranking in the state, and he's worked hard at it. But you know what? They pack up the car on the weekends and take off for Madison or whatever venue they're going to. They go stay in a motel and they bike.
And my buddy Trevor's always out of town. I don't even know when he's home.
That's cool stuff. That not only is a good outlet for the kid, but it's a family builder.
Yeah.
And that's important stuff.
Doug, we always run out of time too quick. We do. We gotta. Once you leave the board, I'm just going to bring you in, and we're just going to co-host together.
You got to be careful what you wish for there.
Really appreciate the time from you always, sir. Thanks a lot, Doug.
Yep, no problem.
Wood County Board Chairman Doug Machon joining us again. We appreciate it. We appreciate our friends Joel and everybody over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They have a great YouTube page. You can find this and other great interviews on, and of course next week sometime you can catch it on public access. Again, big thank you to them for joining us, and you, Doug. We appreciate
My pleasure.
We'll be back with more.